We'll call the meeting to order and pretend it's 3:30. I'll need to call the roll.
Commissioner Atwater,
Present.
Commissioner Barquette is excused, Commissioner Christopherson is excused, Commissioner Duffy is excused, Commissioner Griffin,
I'm here.
Commissioner Trezza,
Here.
and we have Acting Chairman Allen.
Here,
So we do have 4 commissioners present. It does constitute a quorum.
by the skin of our teeth,
Right?
we made it. Can't nobody leave. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Does anybody want either of the items pulled from the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second?
A motion on the table to approve the consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, if any? None? Committee reports. David?
Nothing going on for me.
Steve?
No, I'm okay right now, at the moment.
Bill?
Not a committee, but the inland port's getting heated up. In a good way, it's moving quickly.
Good.
We had our first call, actually our second call last week about the executive committee on that. So they're thinking that they want to have something decided by the end of the year, first quarter.
Good.
So they're making progress.
That's good news.
I did notice in one of the publications that there was some substantial grant money toward another inland port. I have the notes here somewhere. I can find them and give them to you after the meeting.
I know there's some stuff back east that's happening. Utah is getting quite a
Yeah,
bit of money as well.
Utah, it was about Utah getting a pile of money for their inland port.
There'll be a lot of money available for this. We're just not sure where.
Savannah
from
got
yet.
one too, a while ago.
Yeah.
And also San Bernardino is trying to do one.
Of course.
Not tied into this though.
No, it'd be the eastward traffic.
Yeah, the key is gonna be the grant supporting infrastructure for these inland ports and being on that funding train, because this is gonna be quite an undertaking.
For sure. And there's a little bit of competition too between Kappa, the deep water ports and the inland ports. So they're trying to figure out exactly how that's going to work out. They're trying to exclude the inland ports from some of this port infrastructure money, which is good for us in one way and bad for us in another
Other way,
potentially.
yeah, yeah. Okay, nothing from me. Port director's comments. Kurt?
Unless there's any questions on the monthly update.
Yeah, thank you for the very detailed
That was nice.
report you did.
Yes.
We're starting to see, we had a drop off in vessels that we talked about. Obviously, we're starting to see some
Yes.
back. I think we have one a week or
Yeah.
one a day this week.
Yeah.
We expect that we'll see a bump up in September. So hopefully we'll get some volume back up.
It's still been decent though.
Yeah, just quite a bit slower than what
Yeah,
we've been
yeah.
used to. So.
There was a comment about Union Pacific Railroad kind of working out some of their issues. Are they truly doing that?
They are. They've increased their labor. They've increased some training. So the lack of crews is what they're fixing.
Yes.
So.
I saw some interviews by the director of the Port of LA about rail. He had some extensive interviews on YouTube.
And it's not just us. It's every port.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's rail interaction, and they have a problem because they're stacking up. I think they said they had normal capacity of containers in the port of 9,000 was average, and they had over 33,000 containers. And with the stacking, the trouble is you're putting, the old containers are ending up on the bottom. And then you get a train in, and you gotta reverse stack all that stuff to get your containers on the train.
Double handling.
Yeah, it's, he says it's, maybe better by the end of the year, but they're really impacted. It's also gonna impact how fast they can take ships in because of all the stacks of containers. So he says they're actually going to be increasing their wait times for ships to come in.
Which will increase our vessel traffic, probably.
That's
again.
what I got out of it.
Our rail traffic stayed fairly consistent, even though our vessel traffic has dropped off,
Yeah.
but they have made some improvements, so.
I was talking with Tim Grunsky, Penny Newman, last week, and he had a trainload of corn that he couldn't get unloaded. So he wound up having to buy it from somebody else to meet his obligations. Well, it's, waiting for UP to get it here and get it unloaded. Okay, public comment, commission comments. David?
No,
We
I-
covered that already?
Yeah, I think we've covered it.
Okay.
I think so. The only thing I can add is the LWPMA negotiations are still continuing, making some progress here and there, so that's a good thing.
Are they still on a civil, mostly civil basis?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they both kind of rattle saber, but for all intents and purposes, I think the benefit issue's been taken care of. That's a nice hurdle to get over, and so just working on other stuff right now.
Good. Hope for a quick resolution.
Yes.
Bill?
No comment.
None for me either. Public comments on non-agenda items. I don't think we have any members of the public with us today, and we did not receive any via,
Correct. No
Email?
public comments.
so we'll pass that, and we will go into closed session for 2 items.
In 1845, when Charles Weber acquired a 49,000-acre parcel from his luckless business partner in exchange for paying off his grocery bill, he couldn't have anticipated what awaited him 3 years later.
During the gold rush, Argonauts could come to Stockton en route to what were known as the southern mines. But the principal artery for transportation and the fastest way to travel was via water.
There was no Stockton in those early days. There was Charles Weber's tent town on the San Joaquin River that served as a jumping-off point for the gold fields.
He realized that the San Joaquin River was going to be the principal aid in developing his city, and Charles Weber was able to attract enough business people to establish hotels and restaurants and freight companies, and they would cater to the wants and needs of the miners. Those who did not make their fortune, in many instances, had been farmers in their previous lives. And coming back into Stockton or Sacramento, took a look around the Central Valley and realized there was great agricultural potential.
We're in San Joaquin County. This is the most productive agricultural area really in the world. You grow corn, wheat, almonds, walnuts, fruit, a whole host of different commodities feeding the world. You couldn't have the unique agricultural environment we have without the river. That is what allowed this state to turn from a gold mining state, if you will, to a food state.
California's Central Valley is blessed with the best soil there is. Back then, the problem was less about growing the food than it was getting it to market. Without a statewide railroad system or even decent roads, Stockton was in a strategic position to be a hub, connecting the valley by river to San Francisco.
From gold rush days, riverboats carried passengers and cargo on a daily basis between Stockton, Sacramento, and San Francisco.
With the Central Pacific Railroad's completion of a branch line in 1869, connecting Stockton with the Transcontinental Railroad, the city's vision as a trade and transportation hub began to materialize, except for one critical issue.
There were rather tortuous waterways leading from San Francisco to Stockton, weaving and turning through the islands. And because of hydraulic mining, there was a lot of sedimentation of these river areas, and so it was becoming rather shallow.
In addition, ships were getting larger with deeper drafts, leaving the river's shallow depth a barrier to ocean-going vessels. If the region was going to grow with the times, it had to tame the twisting passage through the delta. Even though no single individual gets credit for proposing a dredged shipping channel, It was Lieutenant Colonel Barton Stone Alexander who drew up the plan in 1870 that showed it was feasible.
They kind of choked at the projected $8 million price tag of such a ship canal. And so it continued to be a festering problem for the city of Stockton, being cut off from that ocean-going transportation.
Other countries hungered for California products, not just grains, nuts, and cotton, but manufactured goods too. The opportunity for trade was undeniable.
When a product moves and how it moves is all dependent on where the destination is. The ship behind me is actually loading rice that's going to Japan. Rice would not be able to get to Japan if it didn't use port facilities, because it doesn't make economic sense to ship the kind of tonnage that one ship can hold in another way, like, say, maybe in an aircraft.
Stockton's residents remained convinced their future lay in a navigable ship channel. So in 1925, they passed a $3 million bond toward its construction. The state and feds later added more funds that finally set the project in motion. Work began in 1930. Dredges began removing millions of cubic yards of river bottom. Clamshell dredges piled the mud and rock to make levees that formed the new channel, opening acres of delta islands for farmland. Despite the Great Depression and Hitler's rise in Germany, in Stockton, church bells rang and automobile horns blared. It was 1933, and more than 1,000 people celebrated the arrival of the Daisy Gray, the first deep draft vessel to arrive at Stockton's new port using the new channel. It was the start of a new era.
The local responsibility was to develop the facilities. So they developed the docks, the warehousing, the rail connection, many of which we're actually still using today. In my opinion, rail facilities are just as important to the success of a port as a dock.
Central California Traction Company has been in business for more than 100 years. We are a small railroad that basically does all the railroad switching on the Port of Stockton, and we're going all day long. We get rail cars from two major railroads, Burlington Northern and Union Pacific, and we get those cars, separate them all out, take them to the customers, let them unload them or load them, and then take them back and give them to those Class 1 railroads. The port is a busy place. They've got ships coming in, they've got trucks coming in, and if we didn't have the railroad here, you wouldn't be able to get enough trucks in over the road infrastructure that they have.
When the United States mobilized to fight in World War II, Stockton's port facility became an integral part of the war effort. The United States Army took over the Port of Stockton, and it became the largest vehicle and parts consignment center in the entire United States. The harbor overflowed with 10,000 workers, loading merchant vessels and assembling as many as 125 ships for the war effort, from tugs to minesweepers.
In 1944, the United States Navy took over what was known as Rough and Ready Island and turned it into a naval complex. And the Navy held on to this area up until the year 2000, when Rough and Ready Island and all of its developments were turned over to the Port of Stockton.
Rough and Ready Island tripled the size of the port overnight. It added warehousing and open land that the Port of Stockton never had before. The acquisition really helped us to be able to provide additional space for tenants to develop their own projects.
Yara North America chose this location for its central location in the valley. We were able to lease a piece of the land here and build this facility and move our operation from another location that was less profitable and less convenient, so to speak, keeps us competitive, keeps our costs down, and keeps us profitable, which is really what we're all about.
The presence of global companies reflects the port's role in world commerce. Cargo crossing the docks has grown 176% in less than 10 years, making the Port of Stockton the fourth busiest port in California.
I've seen the port get extremely busy. I was working when there would be maybe one ship every 2-3 weeks. Now we have 2-3 ships every day coming in. It's just booming.
While the port is responsive to world markets and international trade trends, it's also tied to the local community with a responsibility to its neighbors.
Today, the port supports more than 10,000 jobs, what I like to call family wage jobs, to become a major part of the economic foundation of Stockton and the greater San Joaquin County area. The port actually makes a major contribution through tax revenues that go into every facet of every service that's provided by the city of Stockton or San Joaquin County.
The port absolutely is part of the community. The waterway is not just only our ship channel. It is part of the Delta, it is part of the Pacific Flyway, it is a recreation area, it is a fishery. One of the latest commitments the port has made is we have joined the Green Marine program. It looks at how ports and how maritime operations are being handled to reduce your impacts on the environment. At Antioch Dunes National Wildlife Refuge, we are working to restore the habitat for 3 species by placing sand material that comes out of our dredging each year. It's been an extremely successful project. The owls were here when we took over Rough and Ready. You know, the rodents like to burrow holes in our levees, and we use the owls, the Air Force, if you want to call them, to come in and reduce the rodent population. This wonderful group, Puentes, came to us, and they wanted to develop a community garden. And we thought it was a wonderful idea.
We belong to a church in Sacramento, and a lot of the people are elderly and are really in need. So we thought once we start harvesting, we'll go and bless people so that way the people that can't get out, they'll have their fresh veggies delivered right to them. The power of one little seed to help people live more sustainable lives. Yeah, that's our goal.
It could be asked, what's a maritime port got to do with community gardening, or saving endangered species, or running a tiny service railroad, or any of a host of novel undertakings? It's being innovative, it's being responsive, it's being unique. But then, a bustling port 75 miles inland from the coast is unique. That's the Port of Stockton, cast in a different mold from its start as a gold rush depot upriver, doing what's needed to meet the challenges of its times, the responsibilities as a community leader, and embracing the prospects for a bright future.
from staff and took no reportable action. Is that the appropriate verbiage to use?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, with that being done, we are adjourning in memory of Richard Rick, how do I pronounce the last name?
Lechuga.
Lechuga. Rick Lechuga, Port of Stockton police officer. Rick was born in Lodi on December 4th, 1963, and passed away in Lodi on July 13th, 1922, at the age of 58. Way too young. Rick started with the port on April 28th, 1991 as a police officer. He worked for the port for over 31 years. Rick was commended on many occasions for his outstanding effort and dedication to the Port of Stockton. Rick was a canine officer 2 times during his tenure at the port. His canine partners were Yankee and Rex. Rick and his canine partner Yankee won multiple canine trial awards. Rick was very proud to have worked for the port, so much so that his casket was draped with the Port of Stockton flag, and he was buried in his port police uniform. Rick enjoyed spending time in Lake Tahoe, going to Raiders games, golfing, bowling, fishing, working on and driving fast cars. Sounds like a police officer's family. And rock and roll music, that one too. He loves spending time with his children, either bowling, watching TV, or movies. Rick is survived by his loving children, Jonathan and Ashley. On behalf of the commissioners, the port director, and staff, sincere sympathy and condolences are extended to the family of Richard Rick Lechuga. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Great job.